Hey everybody, we've got a late night in the studio here, so I wanted to make a quick walkthrough to clear up what I think is one of the biggest misunderstandings in the Bible. And it's this idea that Jesus said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed. Now the thing is, he actually never said that. That's not in the Bible. Now, as we go through this quick study here, I'm not coming against a particular pastor or teaching or an organization. I just want to show you guys what the Word of God actually says, because when I started to do in-depth Bible study, this is one of the things that I got corrected on as I looked at the Word and saw, oh, it doesn't actually say that. So I better adjust my belief system to what the Bible actually says. Now, what Jesus actually said, I'm going to show you here in a minute, is if you have faith in the same manner that a mustard seed has faith. And they're two very different things. So where this confusion comes from is in Matthew 17. So let's take a look at this real quick here. Now, not every translation will insert this phrase as small as a mustard seed, but it's in verse 20 where Jesus said, because of your unbelief. Now, this is right after, you can read back the context a bit. There's this demon. The disciples couldn't cast it out. Jesus rebuked the demon. It came out of the child. The disciples asked, hey, why couldn't we do that? And Jesus said, because of your unbelief. For I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Now, right here is where some translations will insert faith as small as a mustard seed. But what we're actually going to see is that's not in the text. What I'm going to show you is it's just an interlinear. Now, anyone can look this stuff up. There's online resources that are free. I've actually got a big old physical interlinear Bible that I like to do research on. And here you'll see the actual text and a pretty raw translation. Now, some of you are your eyes are glazing over at all this, but just hang on for a minute. This is Matthew 17:20, and the website I usually go to is scriptureforall.org. I don't think it's been updated in a while, but the text is still the same. That hasn't changed. So what he actually says is, if you may be having faith as a kernel of mustard. Now, you'll notice nowhere in here do we see the Greek words as small as, or any Greek words that could be translated into English as small as. It's not there. So really what we need to know is, what does this word mean? This word hos in the Greek. I'm going to show you here. And again, this is stuff anyone can look up. This is free online resources. I like to use blueletterbible.org a lot. I'm just familiar with the interface and the functionality of the website, but there's a lot of others out there as well. Now this word, pretty common word in the Greek. You can see the definitions here. And for the beginners, what I would recommend when you're looking at all this stuff, just look for the bold. Don't worry about all this. Don't worry about all the Greek down here. Just look for the stuff in bold. The word means as, or like as, and even as. Now, that doesn't really help us. But right here is where you see the difference. According as, or in the same manner as. So what is more accurate to translate is Jesus saying, if you have faith in the same manner as a mustard seed. Now, that might not seem like much of a difference, but it's not talking about the size of a mustard seed. Because again, those words aren't in there. He's saying if you have faith in the same manner that a mustard seed has faith. So one of our questions would be, well, how does a mustard seed have faith? Or what is the faith of a mustard seed? Now, if you get into time-lapse videos, and go down the YouTube rabbit trail of all that really interesting stuff and find a time-lapse video of a mustard seed, you can actually see it grow, and it's really cool. I watched one once, and I saw this mustard seed planted in the soil, and I saw it grow through the time-lapse video. Now, as that process was happening, not once did I think, oh, I wonder if this seed is going to turn into an apple tree, or an airplane, or a can of tomato sauce, or a cell phone. Didn't think that even once. Because a mustard seed can only grow into one thing, a mustard bush or a mustard tree. Its DNA, its identity, only can grow into the thing it came from. Now, Jesus talks about this in some other places. We're not going to go there right now, but we just need to understand the context. The faith of a mustard seed is that when it is planted, it will grow into a mustard tree or a mustard bush, whichever phrase you want to use there. That is the faith of a mustard seed. It knows where it came from, it knows what it is, and it knows what it will become. Now, there's another reference for this whole idea of faith as small as a mustard seed that comes from Luke 17, because the event is recorded in Luke 17 as well. And I actually really like this one because you get the same phrase, if you have faith as a mustard seed. And again, some translations even here will add faith as small as a mustard seed, but you can look here. This is the Luke 17 interlinear. It's not in there. If you have faith as, that same Greek word, hos, as a kernel of mustard. Nowhere in here do you see small or tiny or minuscule. It's not there. It's that same word. So this is another reference where we get this confusion. But the crazy thing about this, you guys, is that if we would just read this verse right here, verse 5, we would get some context that really does away with this idea of, well, we just need more faith, because the disciples, the apostles, they asked Jesus, hey, increase our faith, which is, we would think, a very normal and natural thing to ask, because from their perspective, oh, we did not have enough faith to do this thing, so we need more faith. And some of us would expect Jesus to respond with, well, here's the 10 or 12 or 5 or 3-step program on how to grow your faith. But he doesn't say that. He says, if you have faith in the same manner that a mustard seed has faith, you can say to this tree, be pulled up by the roots, be planted in the sea, and it would obey you. This is the craziest thing, because the disciples even think, now this is before they've been born again, before they've received the Holy Spirit. So they're still learning all this stuff too. They're still in the dark on a lot of these things. But they're thinking in the same incorrect way that a lot of Christians have been taught to think today. We just need more of this thing. And Jesus didn't say, yeah, you just need more of it. He actually said you need a different kind of faith. You need a different thing altogether. The identity of the thing is incorrect, and it cannot function in the way you want it to. Now, Jesus does describe a mustard seed in Matthew 13, which a lot of people are familiar with this one too. Let's go over there real quick. In one of his parables about the kingdom of heaven, he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds. Now, people will always take this and say, well, see, Jesus talked about how the mustard seed is the smallest of all the seeds. And that means anytime he uses the word mustard seed, he's talking about how small it is. And that is just ridiculously not the case. Here, in this context, he's saying, even though the mustard seed is the smallest of all the seeds, when it is planted and grown, it is greater than all the herbs and becomes a tree, so the birds of the air can come and nest in its branches. Now, the point he's making here is not you need to have something small. What he's trying to get across is this idea of an aspect of the kingdom of heaven. It does not matter what kind of category mankind puts a thing into as far as its size or its power or its ability. What actually matters is the identity of the thing. Because the identity of the mustard seed is that it came from a mustard tree, it will produce a mustard tree. That's the only thing it can do. And it doesn't matter if someone looks at the mustard seed and says, oh, you're too tiny, you couldn't grow into a tree. That's ridiculous. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It came from this. When it's planted and grows, it will produce this. That is the identity of a mustard seed. That is the faith of a mustard seed. Now, if we had faith in that way, in that kind, and that likeness, then we could do X, Y, and Z. That's what Jesus was trying to communicate and get across to his disciples. Now, I can hear some people, even when we go over all this, some people will say, so you're saying we need to grow our faith bigger. No, actually, you don't build your faith. And I'm going to show you this in Hebrews 12. There's a lot of references for this, but I want to keep this short. So in Hebrews 12, there's a pretty famous line, actually, pretty famous passage. Surrounded by the great cloud of witnesses, and we see that we are looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, if Jesus finished our faith, that means we don't need to work on it. We just need to learn to work with it. And those are two very different things. Let me give an example. This is one I've used quite a bit, and I think it's working pretty well as a metaphor. My first cell phone was a flip phone, and it was probably like 15, 16, 17 years ago. Old school flip phone. I could text on it, I could call, I think I could play Snake and maybe Tetris and some stuff like that. That was it. It was a great flip phone. I loved it, actually. It was one of those that you could stand up and it would spin around. It was very cool. I was very impressed with it. That phone had a certain amount of computing power because of what it was. It could not, let's say, launch a rocket ship into the atmosphere or put someone on the moon or hack into the Pentagon. It couldn't do those things because its computing power was this. Now, let's say that Jesus comes and builds a supercomputer that can do anything a computer can possibly do. To compare my flip phone to his supercomputer would be ridiculous. So if Jesus is doing all these crazy things with his supercomputer, he's running 100 different programs at the same time, he's recording, he's live streaming, he's doing Photoshop at the same time, all this stuff with his computer, and I come to him and I say, hey Jesus, I want to do all that stuff too. Can you give me more of these flip phones so I can do that? He would probably laugh in my face, and he should, because we understand how ridiculous of a request that is. He might respond with, you don't need more of that little flip phone. What you need is a completely different machine altogether. Now then, if he goes and builds me a computer like his and gives it to me, that's what we see described in Hebrews 12, with Jesus being the author, designer, and finisher of our faith. It is he who designed and built this thing of faith and gave it to us as a free gift. We see this in Ephesians 2, that faith is actually a gift from God, which is why we don't need to build and grow our own faith. We do need to grow in it and work with that faith and understand how to work in that faith or with that faith. And a computer is actually a great example because your grandma might be able to send emails on her computer, and that's about it. You can probably do a lot more with your computer than a random person's grandparent can because they don't understand how to properly use or how to fully use the capabilities of the machine. And we grow in the knowledge of that faith, but it's not as if Jesus gave you a different machine. Now, this is one of the coolest things, and there's so many other references I could show you guys, but really just what I want to get across is to do away with this idea that you just need a little bit more faith, that you just need to flex your spiritual muscles a little bit more and conjure up some more faith. Jesus said that's not how it works. He says, if you have the right kind or brand or type of faith, then you can do incredible things. And then he went so far as to author and design, build, and finish this faith and give it to us as a free gift. So you don't need more faith. You just need to learn how to operate and walk in what you've already been given. Now, if you guys have any questions on this, let me know. Either send me a message or leave a comment on the video or something. Just find me in person and we can talk this through. I know there's a lot of questions that come up with this topic. I've been talking about it for years, and so ask the questions and I'd be more than happy to do like another follow-up Q&A video on this or whatever it is. Or we could just meet for coffee and talk in person. You know, what a novel idea that is. But I hope you guys got something from this. And again, check this out for yourselves. All these free resources out there. You can look up any of this yourself. And if you have questions on how to navigate certain websites or what certain things mean, just let me know. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you got something out of this. So until next time, keep the faith and stay in the fight.